So I'll just briefly introduce myself. I'm Emma. I'm a physiotherapist and a Pilates instructor. And recently I founded the Emma Frazier Pilates app. So as part of the online community that I'm trying to build through my app, I wanted to create these quarterly wellness workshops just to bring people on the learning journey with me, really, to learn more about whole health. Obviously, my expertise is more around movement and musculoskeletal health, when obviously we know there's so many other components to what it means to feel and be well. So I'm really excited, and I think this is a really nice way to start with Joe, because Joe has got a really nice holistic view of health as well. Um, so yeah, I'll hand over to Joe, but like I say, we're a small group, and just for a little bit of housekeeping as we go, I think Joe is happy to take questions as we go. So you can pop them in the chat box or just raise your hand or unmute yourself. And we can just discuss as we go, really. But there will be more time at the end for questions. And then, like I say, I'll share the recording as well, so you can always come back to it. If you're thinking, oh, I really need to remember this, but I haven't got a pen and paper to write it down. So yeah, but I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, thank you for joining. And then yeah, I'll hand over to Joe. But yeah, thank you, Joe, for joining us.
Okay, thank you, Emma, and welcome to this evening's presentation. For those of you who are here live, and also for those that you are watching on catch up, you're all very welcome. And I'd really like to thank Emma for instigating this wellness evening. And I'm delighted to be collaborating with her, as she said, on this sort of more holistic view of people's health. And I just wanted to say, if anybody is interested in connecting with me, then if you want to put your email in the chat box below, and I'll just make sure that you're on my mailing list for the occasional newsletters I write, and on my Instagram and Facebook as well. So, just to introduce myself, my name is Jo Shacklock, and I am a naturopathic health coach. What that means as a naturopathic health coach is that I guide people to better health, mainly using food as medicine and lifestyle strategies, so that you can thrive, feel energized, and achieve lasting well-being. So, we can say bye-bye to things like gut issues, bloating, anxiety, sugar cravings, belly fat, menopause, weight gain, and start to embrace and say hello to reduced fatigue and just recover a happier, more confident, and healthier you. So, how am I different to maybe other health coaches that you've come across? And you may not have come across any before because it's actually quite a new profession. Well, okay, so talking about health coaching as a profession. So, um, basically, about 13 years ago, I had a health crisis and was diagnosed with something called chronic fatigue syndrome, which is also known as ME. And it's a very, very debilitating disease, and it doesn't have any, with the NHS, there is really no cure. And in fact, I was told that I wouldn't recover from it. So I was left to my own devices of having to put together what I call my own health jigsaw puzzle, and it did feel like somebody had just thrown a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle on the table and walked away with the picture box, because I didn't know where to start. But I did start my journey, and I started looking at things like nutrition and lifestyle strategies, and it took about 8 years for me to get better, but I did get better. And what I learned along the way was so fascinating that I took myself back to college and I retrained as what we call a health coach with the College of Naturopathic Medicine in London. And I now work one to one with clients, having created my own 6-step signature program. So, this is my program based on my health journey and my life experience, and also from what I learned at college as well. So, I'm just going to start with a quote from Dr. Aronica, who is a Stanford professor of epigenetics, and I attended a webinar that she did, which was absolutely fascinating because we're beginning to learn so much about genetics and what we call epigenetics, which is sort of things that happen above the genes that we have. So she talks about rewriting your future because food isn't just fuel. It is the pencil that rewrites your genetic instructions. And this is why I think working with food as medicine is so exciting because we have used food as medicine for millennia, but it's only really just in the last, 100, years that we seem to have forgotten a little bit about how important food is and what it can actually do for us. And so this is one of the things that I discovered, the power of food in the body to help you to heal and to get well. So I've got a list of symptoms on the screen here, and I want you just to have a quick look down them. There are obviously quite a lot there, and just see whether you can resonate with any of these symptoms. Symptoms are always just signs that everything is not right. And what I'd ask you to do is never to ignore any symptoms. If you've got symptoms, it's the way that the body is communicating with you that something needs addressing. So even if you've only just got one of these symptoms or you've got a whole host of them, it doesn't really matter. Even if you've only got one, it still needs addressing. And if you've got more than one, I completely can empathize with you because I think in the thick of my chronic fatigue days, I probably was suffering from about 12 of them at any one time. It was just so debilitating. So yes, it was a big jigsaw puzzle to put together. But yeah, make a note in your head of any of those that you might be suffering from. So, as a health coach, I work with the 5 pillars of health. So, as Emma said earlier, it's a very holistic view because health is never just about one thing. It's never just about you having bad sleep or your diet not being quite right or your exercise not being enough and so on and so forth. And there's a great quote saying you can't outrun a bad diet. So, for example, if you do loads of exercise, that's great, but it's not as great if you're not having a good diet on top of it as well. So these 5 pillars all need to be in balance. We've got your sleep, your nutrition, exercise and movement, your mental health. How is that? And how is your relationship with your community? How is your sense of worth and value with work or in your community? These are all really important things. And if one of these is out of balance, then you will be out of balance and you will not be optimally well. So, working in my 6 step program, we address all of these areas to ensure that we can bring you back into balance again. So, the first step in the 6 step program is food awareness. Of course, food is really important, as I was saying. And on the screen here, we have a picture of the food pyramid that I work with. It includes all the macronutrients, your fiber, protein, fats, and carbohydrates. And this is what you should be eating to be optimally well, what you should be eating every day. And I don't know about you, but when I first saw this food pyramid, I was like, whoa, this is a lot of food because most of us have been brought up in an environment of chronic restrictive dieting. Thinking that if we can reduce calories and we can increase our exercise, we will be the shape that we want to be and the weight that we want to be. Now, the new science has thrown that all out of the window. And what we are looking at now is a much more balanced approach, and it's backed by the science. So I'll quickly run you through the food pyramid, but it basically involves every day making sure you have a handful of nuts and seeds. They are the powerhouses of nutrition. They are, the start of life, these little seeds, and getting them into your body can be hugely powerful in changing things in your body. We've got 2 sources of good fat. I absolutely love what I call liquid gold, which is extra virgin olive oil on everything. The Greeks have the least cardiovascular problems of anybody in the European community. They have approximately 5 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil on their food every day. It's so good for you. So that's one thing. And if you're just confused about all the oils, just choose extra virgin olive oil. It's completely safe for cooking and for everything else as well. So it's a one-stop shop there, and hugely beneficial. So the other fats could include something like avocado oil or coconut oil, avocado oil, or avocado pieces. Then we've got complex carbohydrates. So what that means is coming away from refined carbohydrates. So your white flour, your white sugar, your white rice, pasta, coming away from things like that and concentrating on what we call complex carbohydrates, which are more your whole grains like quinoa, bulgur wheat, oats, sweet potatoes. There's a big list of them. There's plenty of foods to choose from, but these will be higher in fiber and will burn more slowly in your body to keep you satiated during the day, as well as delivering numerous micronutrients, as in the vitamins and minerals. Then we've got three sources of good protein. On this food pyramid, you won't see any meat, but you can eat meat. Make sure it's really good quality, lean meat, but otherwise things like eggs, fish, chickpeas are all good sources of protein. And then we need to be eating 3 portions of fruit a day. One of those to be berries, because we know that berries have very powerful antioxidant properties in the body, and 6 portions of vegetables. And then at the bottom there, you've got your 8 glasses of water. So that's the food pyramid. But having said that, in the system that I use, nothing is off the table because this is not about deprivation. It's not about hunger. It's not about craving something and not being able to have it, because we've all been there before when we've done diets and we've like immediately start to think of all the things we really want to have. So I always say nothing's off the table, but always ask yourself, is it worth it? Does it have a nutritional value for you? Sometimes it is worth it. If you've got a friend's birthday and you're having a glass of fizz with some cake, or you're going out to dinner and everybody's having hamburger and chips and that's what you fancy, that's absolutely fine. But is it worth it in the long term? And I'd always say, please try not to normalize a Western diet. Our diet is so far from how we evolved to eat that it's doing enormous damage in our body. So yeah, just bear those two things in mind, and work out whether that's going to be what you really need to eat on that day. So, step number 2 is about balancing your blood sugar. And this is really key. So, you can see on the graph here that we have quite a narrow bandwidth and then a very wiggly line going up and down across the bandwidth. And the wiggly line is a typical Western diet blood sugar reading. But what we really want to do is try and get that wiggly line to be flatten the curves out so that they stay within that bandwidth. The body tries really hard to keep things in what we call homeostasis, so to keep things tightly regulated so that everything can function well in the body. And if your temperature was doing this on a daily basis, you would be really worried. Or if your blood pressure was doing this on a daily basis, there would be something really wrong. It's no different with the blood sugar. And the problem is that we can't really see when our blood sugar is spiking and when it's crashing. So let me just run you through why the graph is looking like this. So we start off at the beginning of the day with breakfast, and a typical Western breakfast might be, let's say, a bowl of cornflakes and a glass of orange juice. Now, a bowl of cornflakes will actually convert to around 10 teaspoons of sugar in your body immediately. There's nothing to stop it from going from the stomach straight into the blood system. And similarly with a glass of orange juice, the orange juice has had all the fiber taken out of it. It's just purely fructose and glucose and goes straight into the system. So what happens is that you will get a big blood sugar spike. Now, the reason why that's dangerous is that sugar in the blood damages our blood vessels. And when we get damaged blood vessels over time, that leads to things like heart attacks and strokes. So it is really, really key to try and understand keeping your blood sugar within range. But the other thing is that once your blood sugar is spiked first thing in the morning, by mid-morning, you are starving because your blood sugar then crashes. And once your blood sugar crashes, the body just says, I need something sweet or starchy in order to get my blood sugar back up again. So what happens? You open the biscuit tin, you have your cappuccino, whatever, and that satiates you. The problem being that by lunchtime you're having another sugar spike, and by lunchtime you're having another sugar crash. So this goes on all day long. We're getting these blood sugar highs and blood sugar crashes, and this is where it's good to say that this is nothing to do with willpower. If you start your day on a roller coaster like this, you will find it very, very difficult to control what you eat for the rest of the day, because this is a hormonal reaction. And when your hormones start to tell your brains that your body is in starvation mode, it's very little that you can do to override it. So it is extremely important to try and bring those sugar spikes and crashes back and flatten the curves to keep within that narrow bandwidth. And if you could bring those curves back into the narrow bandwidth, what would we expect to see? Well, you would um, reduce your mood swings. You would stop the irritability and the hangriness that you get it if you ever get that when you're really hungry and angry at the same time. Your energy crashes and spikes would reduce. You would reduce your anxiety, and you would reduce excessive sugar cravings. In addition to that, on the other side, once your blood sugar is within range, you stop having the brain fog. So you get mental clarity, balanced moods, more energy, and your hormones can come back into balance again. So, all in all, it's a really good thing to do. So, on the next slide, you can see that I've got a typical Western breakfast on the top there with the bagel with cream cheese and orange juice. And you can see that there's a baseline at the bottom of the picture there, which is where the glucose should just be gently rising and falling, but it hasn't. With the bagel and the orange juice, we've got this huge spike. The spike causes something in the body, compounds in the body called free radicals to form. And free radicals I call jihadis because it's easy to remember. And I just imagine them racing around the body, swiping with their swords at every organ and every blood vessel, causing huge damage. So free radicals start to cause damage in the body. And over time, if you think meal in, meal out, day in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out of having high sugar spikes and then crashes, those free radicals can cause changes, mutations in your DNA, and that can lead to things like cancer. So this is why it's so important to reduce your blood sugar. Underneath, you can see an alternative breakfast, which is your three egg omelette with ham and mozzarella cheese, and just look at the difference in the blood sugar level. It maintains a very steady level. That means that you will remain fuller for longer. You won't need any other food for at least 4 hours, and your blood sugar will be nice and stable. And obviously, that's got knock-on effects with your general health. And at this point, I'd also say this is why calories are just not important. So if you are a calorie counter, please throw that idea out of the window, because weight gain has got nothing to do with, not nothing, it's got less to do with calories than you think, because the calorie content of both those two breakfasts are relatively similar, but the top breakfast is doing much more damage in your body and will cause you to be much hungrier and to seek out higher carb, higher sugar foods later on in the day than the breakfast underneath. So top tip of the day for today is try to make your breakfast a savoury one, or at least start your day with a savory breakfast. And if you want to have sweet stuff at breakfast, have the savory first and eat the sweet at the end, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can actually see what your blood sugar is doing in your body, and we do that through something called a continuous glucose monitor, which you can see on this lady's arm. Everybody who joins my 6-step program gets a continuous glucose monitor for 2 weeks, and it sends information 24/7 to an app on your phone, and it is a complete game changer. It's so interesting and it takes everybody by surprise. Some people think they're eating really healthily. They will react to foods that perhaps other people might not spike with, but we're all different. And sugar spikes can not only come from food, they can come from stress, or they can come from lack of sleep. So day by day, you can monitor what you're eating and how that reacts with the blood sugar in your body. And the app will tell you how high the spike is, how long it goes on for, and how dangerous it is for your body. And it also gives you little health coaching tips to help you to bring those blood sugar levels down as quickly as possible. And what I always find is in the first week of having one of these, we talk about people walking across the Alps because there's so many spikes and so many crashes, and it looks like just as it is on the phone there. And by the second week, once we started to understand what's going on with the food that you're eating, those curves really, really flatten out. We start to get a much more measured reading from the glucose monitor. So that's a really good way to understand what's going on in your body and to direct you and create habits towards eating more beneficial food for your body. So step number 3 in my 6-step program is all about our gut health and the microbiome. And if you're not familiar with the microbiome, this is the really, really brand new science that's coming through. It's so exciting. And what we have on the screen here is a picture of a cross section of somebody's gut. In the top left-hand corner, we've got these 100 trillion bacteria that are living down there, including virus, fungi, archaea, and all sorts of other microbes. And a few decades ago, we used to think that, we needed to eat roughage. We used to call it roughage, and that roughage would go into our gut and it would just help transit everything through the gut and out the other end. We know so much more now, but the most exciting thing is that we actually don't hardly know anything still. There's so much to discover about what is happening in our microbiome. So we have these trillions of bacteria that have a symbiotic relationship with us. So as we were evolving, the bacteria came into the human body, and in return for living in our body and for us feeding them, they provide vitamins and hormones, plus an enormous amount of health benefits that we are only just discovering. So I say that gut health is health. If your gut is in any way compromised, you cannot be healthy. So the first thing that I do with clients is work to make sure that their gut is optimally healthy. And how do we do that? Well, the gut bacteria evolved to live on fiber from things like fruits and vegetables and whole grains and pulses. And in the Western diet, that is becoming rarer and rarer on our plates. We are eating very different food that don't contain so much fiber. The ultra processed foods in the supermarkets are stripped of fiber because that maintains their shelf life. So we have got a little bit of a problem going on because the good bacteria in the gut that keep you healthy are beginning to die off. And some of them will die completely and you'll never be able to get them back. So if you compare a gut with something like the Hadza tribe, which are the hunter-gatherer tribes that we're able to study in places like Tanzania, their gut microbiomes are so much more diverse than the Western gut microbiome. And what we don't quite understand yet is what that means for the future of the human being, the fact that our gut microbes are diminishing in diversity. So in the picture here, the green layer in between the bacteria is the mucosal layer. That's actually only one cell thick, but it's really, really important because it's keeping the bacteria away from the red blood cells, which are on the bottom right hand of the picture. Those are actually the nuclei of the red blood cells. And what happens with when we compromise the gut by not eating the right foods, by chronic stress, through toxins that might come into the body, is that that mucosal layer becomes compromised. And you might have heard of something called a leaky gut. And a leaky gut is when that mucosal layer, the tight junctions that keep the bacteria away from the blood system, start to loosen and become leaky. And that means that the bacteria can start to leak through to the bloodstream, which is not what we want at all. If that happens, because 70% of your immune system is in the gut, your immune system becomes extremely compromised. The immune system comes to help to try and bolster up the mucosal layer that's protecting your whole body from the bacteria on the other side. And so I forgot what I was going to say then, and to stop everything passing into the bloodstream. But when the immune system is fired up to protect you, it does that via inflammation. So if you cut yourself, you know that you'll get a little sore, it'll be a bit red and inflamed for a bit, and that's your immune system coming to help you heal from that wound. Exactly the same happens in the gut. The bacteria getting too close, the immune system creates this inflammation to try and stop it leaking into the blood system. But this can be chronic. It can go on for years. And chronic inflammation is the driver of almost every chronic disease we know. So that is why it's so important to keep your gut in a good condition. So the main factors for gut being compromised is diets high in refined sugar, ultra processed foods, low fiber that starve the beneficial bacteria and allow bad bacteria to get a foothold in the gut. So if you're eating a very high processed diet, with lots of sugar and refined flours, you're feeding the bad bacteria. And it's the beneficial bacteria that maintain and rebuild this mucus layer. So that's why it's so key. Medications also can affect the mucosal layer, even things like over-the-counter medicines like ibuprofen and aspirin long term will affect that mucosal layer. We know that antibiotics will wipe out those bacteria completely, good and bad, and then you're starting from a desert, really. You've got to start and build up the good bacteria again and hope that they take a foothold and start to flourish. So a healthy gut thrives on lots of different plant fibers to feed the beneficial bacteria. So when you go shopping, think color. Think if you see something in a supermarket or if you shop on one of these organic food websites, what haven't you eaten for a while? What's different? Just get it in, Google it, cook with it, make salads out of it, whatever it is, because your gut microbes are looking for different foods all the time. Introduce fermented foods to increase your microbial diversity. What we want in your gut is like a really healthy garden. What most of us have got is a bit more akin to a desert. So let's grow that garden and let's grow it by introducing lots and lots of different foods, including fermented foods like kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso. There's lots of them. Let's introduce them into our diet so that it can really help our gut to thrive. Eating regular meal times to support your circadian rhythm. Your microbes also have a circadian rhythm and they're very sensitive to it. So if you're eating very late one night or your diet's a bit messed up because you're traveling or you're busy, your microbes are going to really feel that and they will start to not thrive as much as they should do. Unrush your meals, so give yourself time to digest. One meal a day. I challenge you to put all your devices away and just sit and really enjoy your food. Chew it 15 times each mouthful, swallow it, look around the garden, just reconnect with your food, and your digestive system will really thank you for that. Movement, stress management, and quality sleep also will affect your gut microbiome. So those are important too. So, 5 simple steps for better gut health. Try and eat 30 different plants a week, and that's much easier than you think. So, that includes your nuts and seeds, and your herbs and spices, and all your fruits and vegetables. And if you eat a certain amount of food one week, try and change it up for the next week so that you're tapping into all those different trillions of bacteria and getting as much diversity as possible, as much color as you can, because the polyphenols in each of the different colors plays a different role in helping your body to thrive. Increasing your fiber intake, because that's going to feed the good bacteria. Exploring fermented foods, and just limiting as much as possible the ultra processed foods, which basically are the packaged foods in the supermarket. They are the foods that have more than 5 ingredients on the back. If you look on the labels and there's something on there that you don't recognize, that isn't in your kitchen, put it back, because if you don't recognize it, your gut microbes certainly aren't going to recognize it. They don't know what to do with it, and they can stop the communication of the microbes between each other and us, and it starts to disrupt things. So those are the 5 simple steps for better gut health. So, step 4 of the program is exercise and movement. So, we do live on the whole very sedentary lifestyles, and it's difficult because if you're working in an environment where you need to be sedentary, trying to overcome that is challenging, and I recognize that. But I always say the best exercise is the one that you enjoy, whether it's just going for a walk in nature, or it's going for a run, or it's going to your Pilates class, or whatever it is. But just find something that you enjoy doing, and remember that the world is your gym. We have beautiful parks out there and rivers and streams. Go and find them. And in some of the parks locally, anyway, we've got those equipment there that you can use. Just reframe what exercise is for you. It doesn't have to be in a gym if that's what you don't want to do. I am a big fan of weights, especially for postmenopausal women. There's a lot of science around weight training and how we need to be weight training to keep ourselves from developing things like sarcopenia, which is when you end up on the floor and you can't get up, or you're not able to carry your shopping anymore. So in order to really keep ourselves thriving and healthy into old age, we need to have the muscle mass. And muscle mass also will absorb more glucose. So when you have something sugary and starchy, if you've got a good muscle mass, the sugar will go into the muscles first before being stored as fat. There's a great little 5-minute kitchen workout on a website by Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. If any of you follow him, he's very big in the wellness world. He's a GP. Listen, we've all got 5 minutes. If you check how much you scroll your phone every day, there'll be 5 minutes in there somewhere. And literally, you do not need to change clothes. You do not need anything. You need your worktop in your kitchen, and he gives you a 5-minute workout, which will just get you started moving your body every day and doing something beneficial. So I really recommend that. And the big new scientific word at the moment is inflammaging. And I just wanted to talk about that for a minute in case you come across it. So, inflammaging is basically the inflammation that happens in our body as we age. So, everybody's going to suffer from it. But it is really interesting that some of us will have an accelerated inflammaging rate than others. And general inflammation in the body is obviously to do with how many sugar spikes you're having, the nutrition you're eating, the stress that you're under. But inflammaging directly is to do with how much exercise we do every day. And it's the research was done by Professor Janet Lord. And what she discovered was that people who walk between 3 and 4,000 steps a day have double the amount of inflammaging in their body than somebody who walks 5 to 6,000 steps a day. And somebody who walks 10,000 steps a day doesn't have any inflammation at all. So don't underestimate that just by moving your body a bit more, getting out for that evening walk after your supper if you can, or an early morning before breakfast, all those steps add up. And the less inflammation you have in your body, the less accelerated aging you will experience. Step number 5 is about stress management. We all suffer from stress. Life is very stressful and there is no getting away from it, but we can manage it as best as possible. And stress in the body will also cause inflammation. So we need to be on top of it. And quite naturally, we will resist stress and we will think, I don't want this stress in my life. How can I get rid of it? But I would flip it on its head and say, how is your stress trying to show you that something in your life needs to change? And then once you start to look at it from that angle, and you can put in various strategies to help you cope with the stress in your life. So things like yoga, deep breathing, having a walk in nature, going and sitting and reading a magazine and refusing to feel guilty about it. All these things will lower your stress level, which will mean that the inflammation in the body will also be less. And we need to get the body into a state of calm in order to heal. We cannot heal if we are not in a state of calm. And that was probably one of my biggest lessons, was about how do I get myself into a state of calm so my body can heal. So these practices like yoga and meditation, walking mindfully, not running through your head whilst you're out about your shopping list and your to-do list and who you've just had an argument with, looking at nature, absorbing what's around you, can all really bring the cortisol levels down in your body. And as a health coach, many people, we all sort of have a general idea about what we should be doing, and what we should be eating and all these sorts of things. But it's really, really difficult to make those changes. And we all know about that when we've said at the beginning of the new year, oh, I'm going to do this exercise regime for, this year, or I'm going to lose this weight this year. And, within a few weeks, it all unravels. So my job as a health coach is to help you to uh, consistently create the behavior that you need in order to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. So behavior is influenced very much about your beliefs around yourself and about your environment, about your identity. Who do you actually want to be? And how are you going to get there? So, who I was 13 years ago is a completely different person to who I am today, because I've completely flipped my life on its head, from chronic illness to feeling completely vital and full of life today. So it's entirely possible, but I had to instigate small actionable changes all the way along that became part of my overall lifestyle, that I still practice those things today. Perceived ability. I see in people what they can't see in themselves. So they might say, oh, I can't do that. And I'm like, yes, you can. And we're going to help you to do this by having very small goals set so that you can build up to the behavior that you need to have. Your emotional state obviously is very key to driving your behavior, and competing behaviors. Well, who doesn't want to sit and scroll on their phone rather than going for a run? We have to be honest with ourselves and say, listen, I want to be, this is my new identity. I am a runner and I am not going to scroll on my phone. I'm going to get out there with my training shoes on and go for a run. So we need to acknowledge our competing behaviors that are not serving us and put other things in their place. So as I say, knowledge alone does not create change. We need to also change our behavior. And what makes behavior stick? As I said, behavior will last when the actions are very small and we build them up over time. So the consistency is there and the environment supports it. So, when you open your pantry cupboard door, are the biscuits sitting there looking at you in the face? Well, if they are, you're going to eat one. But if you put the biscuits at the back of the cupboard, you're less likely to be bothered to reach in for them, or you might have a moment to stop and think, Do I really need that biscuit? Is it worth it? What about keeping your trainers by the front door, on the doormat, saying to you every time you walk past it, I am a runner. I'm going to put those trainers on and go out, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Or what about having your yoga mat out in front of the cooker or something so that you remember that you're going to do your deep breathing or you're going to do some stretching that morning? So set up your environment so that it encourages you to do the things that are going to make you into the person that you want to become. And that will reinforce this sense of identity and what you want to become.
Joe, we have had a question
Okay.
in the chat. So it says, my aura ring tells me when I'm stressed, even when I don't think I am. Am I thinking about stress in the wrong way? Could it be stress inside my body?
This is so interesting because these pieces of new technology are alerting us to things that we might not be normally aware of. So I, the answer to that question is that um, I think that stress hits us in all sorts of different ways, and we have become so used to high stress levels that sometimes maybe even the lower stress levels we're not even able to acknowledge because they don't feel that stressful to us. But I would say that two things about the technology. One, don't get obsessed by it, but maybe just take note and think, okay, it's telling me that I've had a stressful time today. So, what are the strategies that I'm going to put in place to bring my body back into a place of calm to counteract that stress that I've had today? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I found is because I've been tracking it, um, if I skip lunch as well, it tells me that I'm stressed.
So interesting. So there we go. That was going back to the gut health
Yeah,
and the circadian rhythm of your microbes, and the fact that you're eating at regular times is stressing your body.
yeah,
So then it might be worth just putting into place regular meal times, and also eating really mindfully. So there's nothing worse than trying to eat when you're stressed, is there? I can't eat when I'm stressed. So therefore, what I would do is do some deep breathing in one of the African cultures. I can't remember which one it is now, but they hum before they eat to bring the body into a sense of calm. Because if you eat when you're stressed, you won't absorb as many nutrients. So calm yourself down, take a little bit of time, take a few breaths, eat mindfully, and then, track your stress levels and see whether that helps.
okay. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome. Okay. So there are two possible futures. So future one is if you do absolutely nothing now and you have any symptoms, or if you're perfectly happy with who you are at the moment and you're happy that you're going to be that person in 3 months' time or this time next year, then okay. But if there's anything that's niggling you and you're thinking, I want to age really well, I want to know what to do in order to increase my longevity, I want to live better for longer, because too many of us are living in chronic health conditions towards the end of our life. I think the average now is 20 years of having a chronic health condition before we die. That is a Western world problem, by the way. And there's absolutely something that we can do about that. So if nothing changes, you're going to be the same. If you implement some changes, you will see the difference and you will start to become that person that you want to be. So, what I would love for everybody is to wake up each morning feeling really full of energy, movement and nutrition being a part of your new life, and healthy habits being your default. So, you automatically getting up saying, I know exactly what I'm going to do today. It's going to promote my health and my longevity, and I'm feeling absolutely amazing with it. And it is entirely possible because I have done it, and I have worked with lots of clients now who have seen changes very, very rapidly. It doesn't take long for your body to start thanking you for the good nutrition and the lifestyle changes that you make in order to support it to be the vital person that you absolutely deserve to be. Thank you. So that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
I have one.
Thank you.
So with the pulses and the alternatives rather than the white pasta and white rice, do you get used to the taste and do you actually end up liking it? Give me an honest answer, Joe.
I will absolutely answer you honestly. I cannot remember the last time I have eaten white pasta. White rice occasionally I do have if I'm out and I have to buy a poke bowl or something, but I would never cook it at home. So a 150-gram bowl of white rice will convert to around 11 teaspoons of sugar into your bloodstream. So I came away from all of that to begin with, whole wheat pasta, really, brown rice rather than white rice. But let me tell you something about your palate and your brain. It changes really, really quickly. And
Right.
once you start to eat these foods, you begin to crave them. And then when you go back to eating the old way, I can feel very heavy in my stomach,
Mm,
get a little bit of bloating, and I just feel like, ugh, I didn't enjoy that. I
mm,
also think on a mental level, having seen what those foods do in my system by wearing a continuous glucose monitor, sometimes I'm just thinking, I know what this is doing in my
yeah.
body. Oh my God, the jihadis are running around and, fighting and damaging all my organs. So visually, that's really helped me to think, I don't want to do that to my body. My body's really precious to me. I'm a grandmother now and I want to be really healthy for the next 20, 30 years so that I can, play with my grandchildren and live a full and vital life. And I know that I've seen what happens in my body with these foods, what they're doing to me, and long term, that's going to cause damage. So, in answer to your question, I absolutely promise you that everybody who has done my 6-step program can't believe that by the end of it, they are loving these foods. But I understand where you're coming from because it can be a big change. So
Mm,
we're talking about small steps here. So we would gently introduce and maybe say, look, okay, for 3 evening meals in the week where you might normally use ordinary pasta or white rice or whatever it is, let's swap it out for some brown rice and keep a diary and see how you feel
yeah.
on those evenings when you've eaten the whole grains and the legumes and pulses and just make a note of it and you will feel better for eating them.
Cool.
Yeah, lovely question. Great question.
I've got a question.
Yes, Selena.
It was in your example of spikes, you
Yeah.
had for breakfast an omelette with ham, and yet that goes against having processed food. And I just wondered the
Yes, you're
balance there.
absolutely right. Yes, Eleanor, I'm totally with you. So, you come across the glucose goddess before? So that
No.
graph was taken from this lady who calls herself the glucose goddess. She's a scientist and she's absolutely brilliant. She's written lots of books presenting the science to people that's understandable because it's quite complicated. And I love her work. But she often includes foods that personally I don't include in my diet. But what she's doing is she's not being too what's the word?
Extreme?
Thank you. Yes, exactly. Too extreme, too early. So
Mm.
what we do is when we assess somebody's diet, Eleanor, when I was first ill, I went to see a nutritionist and she put me on an exclusion diet and I was feeling really poorly anyway, and I came home with a list of foods that I was not allowed to eat. And I actually sat at the kitchen table and wept because that was my joy, was my food. And I felt so awful. And to take that away from me was it wasn't great. So I completely understand that when somebody presents me with a food diary, you can't just say, oh, you can't eat this, that, and the other. We just gently swap
Yeah.
and change until you've got used to it. But I agree with you. I haven't eaten ham for years now, or bacon, unless I'm at somebody else's house and it happens to be served up. But these foods, you're right, they're ultra processed and they're an A1 carcinogen now. The WHO has classified them. So why would you want to put them in your body? But if you're used to eating that sort of food, then I would rather you ate some ham in your omelette than you ate a, I don't know, deep fried what else you might have for breakfast, something else, that we try to go on good, better, best. So what is going to be okay? Let's make a swap here. We could do better by taking the ham out and perhaps adding in a bit of tomato. What would the best be? Oh, having a salad with it with some avocado. Do you see what I mean? So staging it until people are ready to make full changes. So my advice really is as much as possible, stick to that first aisle, fruit and vegetable aisle, pile your trolley full of that. There are certain aisles in the supermarket that I just will not go down. And I just say that aisle is not for me. The crisp and biscuit aisle, the chocolate aisle, the um, you know, uh, sodas and sweetened drinks and things like that. But yeah, it's understanding, trying to read labels. You can use apps to help you read the labels. So there's a great app called Yucca. Has anybody come across that?
Mm.
YUKA. It's a little carrot symbol. It's free to download. Take it out with you to the supermarket and scan the food. All you need to do is scan the barcode on the food, and it gives you a rating and it tells you why it's given you that rating. So if it comes out bad and it says it's got 5 harmful additives in it, and you can click on that and it can tell you about the additives, you will be shocked. You will be absolutely shocked. You'll be thinking, how are they allowed to sell this stuff? But knowledge is power, and once we know what we can eat, what to use to help us to choose food wisely, then we know where to spend our pounds. We don't have to support these companies that are feeding basically chemically engineered food. There's a big argument going on at the moment that a lot of these ultra processed foods shouldn't even be labeled food. They
Mm.
should have on them, this is a chemically engineered product, because that's what it
Awful.
is. So that is why it's causing so much ill health in society, because we're very reliant on these foods, and it's not your fault, it's not our fault. We are presented with them, and as you say, Emma, sometimes when you're very busy and you're running around, to try and cook from scratch is a lot.
Yeah, and just the labeling is obviously designed to sort of catch you
Yes.
out, isn't it? And sort of
Yeah.
tell you it's
It's
healthy and it's
it's
not,
it's
yeah,
high
it's
in
good for
protein,
you.
it's low in fat,
Yeah.
so my advice is never buy a food that's got one of these health halos on them, because they are marketing to you. You don't see a health halo on a cabbage. Okay, so you're in the supermarket and it's saying low in fat. Well, it might be low in fat, but actually we need fat, to create hormones, and to be our brain is made of fat. So we need the fats. If you're anything like me and you were brought up in a very calorie restricted environment, and fat was bad, this is one thing that I've learned, is that actually good fats are so essential to us feeling well. So in the processed food scenario, what they've done is they've taken out the fat, but they've added in emulsifiers and additives and preservatives to give you that fat feel in your mouth. But
Mm.
your body's not stupid. It takes in that food and it knows it hasn't had the fat. So it just makes you hungrier later on for something else that's going to be more satiating. So always I buy full fat milk.
Mhm.
I use butter, extra virgin olive oil. I eat avocados until they're coming out of my ears. And I've never been slimmer than I am at the moment,
Mm.
because I'm eating
There's
good fats and healthy foods.
I was just going to say, if you are particularly interested in the ultra processed foods. There's a really interesting documentary on Channel 4 that Tim Spector did a
Yeah.
few months ago now. Um, and each week he tends to look at, yeah, different foods and also take families or a couple or different people and change their diets. But he particularly looks at what are these things in food and how do they make them. And it's really interesting and quite shocking, like you say, to see what the gums are and the emulsifiers that
Yeah.
are such fake foods. They are, like you say, chemicals, because they're
Mm.
so much cheaper for
Yeah.
companies to use rather than putting a real egg in something.
Yeah.
They'll chemically engineer this goo to
Yeah.
put in it instead.
Yeah.
So it's
No,
really
you're
interesting.
absolutely right. That was a great program, and I'm so glad that this is coming out into, the wider audience, that we're all
Mm,
understanding what's going on. It was interesting. There was an article about this Yucca app on the BBC News yesterday because there's millions of people around the world using it now, and the supermarkets are beginning to change their buying process based on the Yucca scoring because they realize that people are beginning to check. People don't
mm,
want this rubbish in their body. Why is it that 20 years ago, 1 in 4 of us was getting cancer, and now 1 in 2 of us will get
mm,
cancer? People are just beginning to wake up and say, this isn't acceptable. You know,
mm,
the food is very, very strongly driven by food, not entirely, but food in the body, it can be so protective. So, for example, by eating some broccoli, you can turn on over 200 protective genes in your body. I just think that's fantastic. Bring it on. Bring me the broccoli, please.
yeah.
And it's the same with, all the dark berries and all the other leafy green
mm.
vegetables. They're turning on these protective genes. So, let's not be part of the casualty of, the cancer rates or whatever else it is. So, that is the power of food, and that power is in your hands now.
Yeah, I think that's a really lovely way to look at it as well as, and I've heard people say it before, but what can you add? And rather than focus on taking away things, which you've obviously really
Yes.
talked to about this evening. So yeah, what are the good things you can add and don't necessarily focus on, yeah, what you need to get rid of.
Yeah. So my saying is that the more that you add in purposefully, the less that you will eat by accident. So if you
Mm.
start adding in lots of fruits and vegetables and things, the less that either you'll want the other stuff, or you'll be more mindful of not putting it on your plate. So yeah, it will change. And I love that thing about rewriting the genetic instructions. From tomorrow, if you guys add in an extra portion of vegetables, you will start to rewrite your genetic instructions. And I think that's really exciting.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll all, I'm sure we'll all go and do that tomorrow. But I'm sure we could talk about this for ages because, like you say, it's so interesting, and different bits are relatable to each of us. So, yeah, thank you, Joe. It's been so interesting and lovely to hear you speak and hear how you work. But like I say, we've got the recording. We'll share it with you all. I'll also share contact details for myself and Joe as well. So if you do want to get in touch with us following this to go through anything else, you can. And then I will be doing another similar setup for a workshop in October. So that's when the next one will be. So you can look out for that as well. But I'll let you know as we get closer to the time what the topic will be. But yeah, thank you for joining.
Thank you
And
both
yeah,
of you
I hope
again.
you really enjoyed it. But yeah, thank you, Joe.